quality of their children's education, school boards are increasingly restricting comments from parents, and that is raising some free speech concerns. With us now, PragerU personality C.J. Pearson and Independent Women's Network Senior Fellow Asra Nomani. Thank you both for coming on. I was just talking about this. More and more school boards across the country are limiting speech. They're shortening the times. I want to play this soundbite from a woman in Idaho who was speaking out about a transgender policy in their school district. Watch.
They have no interest in hearing how the parents feel. They have no interest in including us in their decisions. They are just tyrants, and they just want to push their agenda and do their own thing. So,
kind of sad to think of school board members as tyrants. Your thoughts, Oscar?
Oh my gosh, they are just terrorizing us as parents. The school board members across the country have gotten this memo that parents are the bad guys. And on my shirt here that my dad made for me, I have what we are, which is mama bears and papa bears. And on the other side is what we are called, domestic terrorists, by the National School Board Association, right? QAnon moms, white supremacists. Just last Thursday night, I spoke to our school board, and the school board chair kept interrupting me. We are told to shut up and sit down, but guess what? We're not.
No, you're exactly right, and it's incredibly clear that our schools have fallen into an absolute state of crisis. Things like drag queen story hours, things like critical race theory. This is absolutely why parents are battering down the doors.
Very predictable. It's not getting better, it's getting worse.
These are taxpayers.
And you think parental Bill of Rights is going to do anything about this? Please.
Signal, it deletes text messages, right, to stop people from being able to get access to these records through Freedom of Information Act. And he says the following, or quoting here the Wall Street Journal on Toscano using Signal, quoting here, one screenshot shows Toscano's team members notifying him an agreement was rejected about a case where an 18-year-old defendant was allegedly communicating with a 10-year-old and exchanging nude photos. Toscano replied saying, that sucks. As long as he didn't bash us, I'm not hot about it, meaning not hot about the case. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, we know this so well. Like Steve Toscano is a neighbor to us, in Fairfax County. We know all of the cases that he is not prosecuting, and the fact that he's using this app of Signal and its little feature of disappearing messages. That's what the feature that they set it on. You have a ability to say that messages remain, which is really how it should be when it's the public record. But from the school board to the prosecutors, they have made public government something like Fort Knox when it comes to trying to get information. And so that's why parents, citizens, everyone, you just got to demand transparency. Only way
Wrong.
all of this corruption.
You take over their schools.
It's like, what is there to hide? It's like all of these leftists are taking record keeping.
They're entertaining you.
And it's just absolute insanity. And I think, what is there to hide?
Insanity is what you're doing about it.
What do you not want these parents to struggle?
It's a great comment. And lastly, I just want to get your take, because we've been talking about this for several days now. Fairfax, Virginia schools, 12, maybe 13 of them now, withholding, Asra, these merit awards and really mostly targeting Asian children.
Well, guess what? Newsflash. It's 17 schools now. We got one more school tonight. Marshall High School.
I want to describe to you what you just saw. Regular newscast on Fox News. Since we know it's skewed to the left, it's kind of hard to watch the other stations, although I must, just to understand the bent, the slant, to maintain things status quo. My point, parents don't really want to solve the problem. They don't want to solve the mistake. They don't want to end what was a very poor idea 100 years ago. Back then, not enough wealth was created by the American industry and by the private sector to facilitate public schooling. At the same time, public schooling was quite small compared to the majority population that it is today. Majority of students go to public school. Back then, 1900 or so, it was primarily private school education for those who can afford it. Everyone else pretty much had to fend for themselves. Thus came the General Education Fund under Woodrow Wilson, and together with the Rockefeller Foundation, led the charge, led the way to create the beginnings of a public school system. Grew slowly, but like all things, 100 years later, it's completely toxic in every county, in every state. And a federal government that has a Department of Education at the cabinet level that seems to desire, with every passing president, to instill its sense of education and, I would say, curriculum manipulation. We've heard all the catchphrases, not really interested in repeating, catchphrases like the most recent under George Bush, "No child left behind." They don't work. The federal government, under the auspices of federalism, of its founders and framers in the early days, there was discussion of how far the federal government should go. It was decided upon in the framing of the Constitution that the federal government was not to be involved in schooling. Thus, it doesn't appear in the Constitution. No mention of it. If it were that important to the federal government, the framers would do it. They didn't. No mention. It was left to the states. Pretty obvious. But Jimmy Carter came and made it a federal cabinet level position. Furthermore, as you can see in the newsreel, the complaints about the tyranny at the county school boards is prevalent. But the parents, including Mrs. Naomi, who you see in the video, in the newscast that I recorded, she knows of my link. I can't say she's read the link. She's one of the many Moms for Liberty. I've had a few conversations with them here in South Florida. You really don't want to take over the schools, do you? You have to take back the public school system to you, the parents. You've got to run the budgets. You've got to run the budgets. And you got to get funded from the state's Department of Education. The state, not the federal government. The state has to demand that the federal government not send them money based on curriculum scores, higher test scores, and modalities, education modalities. They should only send money, they can only send money for bricks and mortar, for buildings, expansion. That's it, building expansion. Parents have to educate their children. It's a failure of parenthood to not adhere my advice. We must amend Florida's Parent Empowerment Law, 1002-33, Clause 3B. Since 2013, I've been asking to amend this law that I was the first to execute here in Florida and expose it for what it is, a closed society voting elections law. To the point of unconstitutional election law. For the parent, as I was, parent proponent, the law says that I need one other parent other than myself, or a teacher, or an ESAC member, which are educational advisory boards. And we can fire a trigger letter, give it to the principal, the school administrator, and the school administrator has to inform the county school board and call an intraschool election. What makes it un-American is that in the 90 days that these elections have to be called, only one side gets to write the ballot that goes out to the parents by mail. And they come into the school and vote in one ballot box. But here's the catch. The teachers union votes separately from the parents. Separately. Different ballot boxes. At the same library, cafeteria, commonplace in the school to submit your ballot. And in doing so, you've created a closed society elections law, because a principal will stand next to the ballot box, as they did here in KBK8 Center, which is our K8 elementary school and middle school here in Key Biscayne, and obviously will intimidate the teachers to vote no on the parents' initiative. The law says you have to win 50 plus 1 parents vote, 50 plus 1 teachers vote. In my case, they really turned on me. The newly arrivals to Key Biscayne, affluent Latin Americans, were comparing their public school at home in Latin America with our public school, which is it's mediocre and decaying and ridiculous as our public school system is. It pales in comparison to those in Latin America, because they are really, really schools that you don't even consider. These people do not consider going to public school in Latin America. None of them. So obviously, questioning this one, which is a good reason why they came to the United States to begin with, is not to be questioned. Well, I'm questioning it. We, as Americans, understand that our kids are becoming anti-establishment socialists in our school, indoctrinated by the American left. Principally, the National Education Association, who influences so many elections on behalf of the Democratic Party. They take money from every teacher's salary for the teachers union, whether you're a union member or not. They claim they'll represent you whether you agree to be a union member or not. And the money comes out of your paycheck. I believe most recently, if you choose not to be in the union as a teacher, not only do you get blackballed, you won't be reassigned to any decent schools. You'll probably be stuck in the inner city. And most teachers obviously want the best schools possible to teach in. But because you don't want to become a union, you kind of like, you don't get fired or anything, but you get blackballed. And unless you're really high performing, like in the case of special needs teachers, you pretty much are needed elsewhere. But if you're a special needs teacher, you could probably call your own shot, because most teachers don't want to teach kids with disabilities. But don't want to really go down that rabbit hole. I want to amend the law. Go to the website. It's been up since 2013, and Governor DeSantis, Governor Scott, and now Virginia Governor are given an opportunity to amend the law. They haven't as of yet. All three were Republican. Two of them had face-to-face relationships with me. They know what I did. They know I went to federal court on behalf of the Neva King Cooper principals in the Fernandez Cristobal versus School Board of Miami-Dade County. The case was heard, and then we lost on appeal. But that judge understood what the Neva King Cooper principals went through and what I went through. 100% intimidation. If you don't want to take over schools, do you think that the school board is listening? This is yours truly, Macontherock Blink Radio, WSQF 94.5, WSQFradio.com, to hear me speak about this often, as I built a FM radio station after losing my speech in 2013 as president of the PTA. What I lost for 1 mile, I expanded to 10 miles by buying back my voice, my speech. As a Cuban immigrant, it was quite offensive. My parents were Cuban who came to the United States so that their children would not lose their freedom of speech. I lost it. So I bought it back the American way. Stay free, my friends.